The world is shaking, whether we like it or not. Something big is coming. We're watching systems that we've trusted in for years. Banks, governments, economies crumble right before our eyes.
So we've seen losses in the UK, we've seen losses in Europe, not on the same scale that we've seen in the Far East. But
you've been talking about confirmation from Hong Kong that its stock exchange has closed down more than 13% today, that it's its worst single day in 30 years, since 1997 in the financial crash.
Many are still distracted with entertainment and headlines. But where does that leave us as Jamaicans abroad who left the island searching for a better life, searching for better, safer, more stable life? What happens when the so-called better life starts to break down? And this video is not to promote fear in anyone, but it's about now stepping out in faith, being bold, and remembering who we are as Jamaicans. We're resilient, resourceful, and this is the moment that we stop waiting for change and become the change. Let's reason. All right, guys, so welcome back to our channel. Thank you guys for tuning in. Today, you know, we're having a serious discussion. The world is changed. The world has changed as we know it. Yeah. The things that we have put our trust and safety in, they're falling apart. We can't leave them to go on unnoticed or unspoken about. We have to discuss these things.
Yeah, and mainly addressing our Jamaicans abroad, because as they say, nowhere better than yard.
Nowhere no better than yard.
And as we can see, as you mentioned earlier, the systems as we know them are crumbling. Mm-hmm. You have 3 co-equal branches of government that should, take care of, the checks and the balances. Mm-hmm. And they're set up in a way which it's more or less like good faith, for each section, hoping that each will do what it's supposed to do. And it's been tested, as we can see at the moment.
So those who don't understand what that means, what are the 3 branches of government?
Yeah, so we're talking about your executive branch, the legislative, and the judicial system, right? Mm-hmm. And that basically ensure that the democracy works, in a fair way, where you have nobody with too much power. You understand? And then the law applies to everyone. But as we can see, for example, in America at the moment, you have one branch, for example, the judge making ruling, and you have the administration ignoring that ruling and still, going ahead with what they want to do.
A constitutional showdown is underway between the executive and judicial branches, a stress test on the more than 2-century-old system of checks and balances. Did the president defy a federal judge?
Today, that judge demanded, again, to know why the administration flew hundreds of Venezuelans.
This is the moment federal agents in masks and hoodies detained Tufts University doctoral student Rumeysa Öztürk. The Turkish national handcuffed and led away, one of at least a half-dozen international students targeted in recent weeks after...
What happens now?
What happens now? It's a serious issue. Where do we stand? We have no rights.
It would appear as if, you have no rights at the moment under, for example, in America, under the Constitution, because they're now just picking up people and deporting them and holding them in detention centers without due process. Family members, are not told where they're taking them to, not told what the charges are. They're being detained by people without visible uniforms with name tag or numbers or anything like that. So
Just plain clothes.
you know, in masks
Persons,
and all of
yeah.
that. So it's a scary time at the moment, you know, in terms of how things are, you know, in comparison to how you know it, you know, how things should have been. So for our Jamaicans out there, with what's happening at the moment, it's now is the time, as you were saying, to act rather than sitting down hoping for the best, because you might find yourself in a situation, whether you're, you know, a green card holder, whether you're, you know, citizen by naturalization or whatever other means, you might find yourself being deported, and not necessarily because you've done something wrong or, you know, you're illegal, but just because you might have said something that is not liked or favorable for, you know, the status quo at the moment. So you might find yourself being deported. You know, you might be a student that took part in a protest, you know, maybe standing up against what you consider to be, you know, war crimes or whatever your position is. You might think you're standing up for and having integrity, you know, and consistent with your morals in terms of injustices.
So what you're saying is that if free speech is no longer protected, you know, where does that lead us?
It would appear that way now, that, you know, you're not free, you haven't got freedom of speech anymore, which, you know, meant to be protected under the Constitution, you know, in America. And even in the UK, you see where that's also, you know, it's playing a part in the UK. Recently, we had 2 MPs traveling to another country.
The UK's Labour Party MPs Yuan Yang and Abdusam Mohammed were detained and deported by Israeli authorities upon arrival at Ben Gurion Airport on Saturday. They travelled from Luton with 2 aides as a part of the parliamentary delegation. Media reports suggest that Israeli immigration officials claim the group planned to document the activities of security forces and spread anti-Israel hatred. All 4 were denied entry following an interrogation ordered by Interior Minister Moshe Arbel, while Israeli officials reportedly said that the visit had not been verified as an official one. The UK Foreign Office confirmed that the group was a part of formal parliamentary delegation. Meanwhile, British Foreign Secretary David Lammy condemned the very move.
And based on what they have said in Parliament, that was held against them, and they were basically detained and deported. And these are government officials. So it appears as if, as you know, you've said, things that we're used to as rule of law and protection and human rights, it appears as if it's non-existent, and it's who is the biggest and the baddest that is basically running things at the moment. So it's like the bullies are taking over now, you know, and it's a scary time, because you remember we're looking at a few other news channel videos, and we're looking at the comments, and I mean, correct me if, you know, I'm exaggerating, it's like almost 90% of the comments of people that were saying, I'm scared, I'm afraid. Those that they were saying their family members who are able to leave, they're leaving, they're going back, you know, to places where they feel safe. And then you have some who are saying, I'm in a situation now where either I'm too old, or financially I'm not able, or logistically it's not possible, and I can't move, but I'm scared to death.
Yes.
And this is the temperature that is out there. And to confirm that people are genuinely scared, just look at the protests.
This is what community looks like.
And tens of thousands of protesters have gathered across the United States and other parts of the world to demonstrate against US President Donald Trump's policies. The hands-off rallies, as they're known, voiced opposition to President Trump's plans to downsize the US government, reshape human rights, and his handling of economic issues. Marches also took place in Britain, Canada, France, Germany, Mexico, as well as Portugal. One of the biggest rallies was held in Washington, where Democrat Congressman Jamie Raskin accused Mr. Trump and Tesla owner Elon Musk of trying to tear down the American Constitution.
I believe Donald Trump is trying to tear our country down. The only thing that makes sense is he is working on behalf of Putin. I mean, that's the only thing that makes sense. I mean, the things that he's doing is not trying to make America better. He's ruining our infrastructure, like every department in our government he's ruining, and he's right now destroying our economy. He's taken away all of our allies. We're a pariah in the world, and Congress sits back and does nothing, and we have to stand up and take our country back.
On the 5th, where you had all 50 states, over 100 and odd protests was happening simultaneously, and people are just coming out and saying enough is enough. Right. So people are literally scared as to what is happening. So to your question, this is the temperature if you're not living under a rock. So what are you going to do?
So what's next? I mean, with all these protests, it seems like, you know, the whole world is protesting against what's happening. Is that going to push the hand of the government to make a change? Are they going to listen to the people? Or are we going to see more tyranny?
That's a good question, because you were having some predicting a civil war before the election, presidential election in America. So some were saying if one party win, you're gonna have things turning for the worse, or if the other win, that might cause a civil war. So at the moment, we can see how it's affecting a certain group of people. The thing that's coming down the pipeline is not looking good, because you're looking at maybe recession.
I was going to get onto that. The economy is a next issue.
Right.
Because for the past few days, every single day that we've woken up, it's, Dow Jones is dropped this and blah, 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 you know?
That's exactly the point I was going to make. The stock market is
crashing,
is crumbling.
We've seen losses in the UK, we've seen losses in Europe, not the same scale that we've seen in the Far East, but significant nonetheless. Where is this going?
As well, the Dow was down 4%. It was then up 1.5%. It's back down minus 1.62. That's as the markets try and respond to what is going on.
Plummeting, every day you look at it. And
federal jobs.
People are losing their jobs. As a result of that, people are going to lose their home. So it's a tight...
It seems inevitable.
Yeah, that you're going to get to a point where it's going to be bad for the ordinary, working class people. If you haven't got a few, dollars, tucked away, it's a scary time, because people are living from paycheck to paycheck. And if, inflation keep rising and people mortgages go up, we're speaking to someone again from Canada, and they were talking about how their mortgage system is different, where after 5 or 10 years they'll reassess it, and it might go up or might go down. But with inflation going up and everything, cost of living going up, you might end up in a situation where as that person was alluding to, mortgages were increasing almost by 50%. You understand? 30 to 50%. Where is the average person gonna find that extra cash per month? And most of us can't, if you're honest. So the wise thing to do is to put yourself in a position where you're able to ride this storm in the best possible way you can, before it's too late. So you need to start making some moves. And this is where we're saying for those Jamaicans that's out there in the diaspora, if you can start setting up somewhere for yourself here in Jamaica, something modest, even for those with little or no capital, you can set up some sort of business. Do you understand? That requires little or no capital. I mean, again, farming is always a go-to. You can plant in your backyard. Crops that are quick turnaround crops, you understand, to sort of get a little income there. You can set up a little thing on your piece of land where you're now not worrying about, okay, if everything should, go worse, the worst case scenario, then at least you're not worrying about banks and mortgages and all of that. You can have your own little land with a little thing on it. Because with, things crashing, people are end up going to lose.
And that's what we're saying is Jamaicans, what's your backup plan? It cannot be in the system. I mean, there is no safety, there's no foundation in anything in this world right now. There's no tangible nothing that you can hold on to. So what is your backup plan?
But which is a good point you're making, based on the examples we just give. Nothing is set in stone as we know it. Do you understand? Everything is changing. Can't emphasize enough. You can't. COVID was an example that things can change rapidly before you even get a chance to do anything. Because if you remember, there was these restrictions. Tons of restrictions overnight, where you can go, when you can go, how you can go, and all of that. Who you can see. You couldn't, bury your dead properly. You couldn't have all your guests at your wedding. So what we're saying is, when you see things are lining up, and the projection is heading in a certain direction, do something while you can. Make a move. Do something, because a lot of the news outlets, some economists, is saying that some is saying we're actually in a recession already, and some is saying the recession is coming.
Parts. The worst. What is this going to mean? What's your analysis on what people need to be preparing for?
Well, Kate, it means higher prices and it means fewer jobs. I mean, on the higher price side, a lot of moving parts here, a lot of uncertainty. But I think if the tariffs are imposed as articulated and stay in place, by this time next year, the typical car price will be somewhere between $5,000 and $10,000 more.
The worst we've ever seen. That's how I've heard them put it.
But yes. In many years, and you can sit and hope for the best, or you can start making some plans and doing something rather than sitting down and worrying and being fearful. Take steps that you can. That can make your situation better or put you in the best situation.
So, with the economy crashing, can you talk about remittances and how is this going to impact Jamaicans here on the ground?
Jamaicans here
who rely on those overseas.
Yeah. They're going to be impacted because those remittances are sending children to school. It's helping to pay for rent. It's helping to pay for mortgage. It's helping with our local economy, because when those remittances come, the average family spend that back into the system, and it's knock-on effect in a positive way, where they're going to go down to your local farmer and buy the food. You understand? They're going to go to your local shop and spend that money, your supermarket. They're going to spend all that money and that go back in the system. So when it hits, abroad with, people have to be tightening up the purse and can't afford to send anything anymore, or little or nothing. It's going to have a knock-on effect on our local economy as well, because that remittance goes a long way in pumping money into Jamaica. So the whole thing is a mess, and everybody on both sides of the pond is going to feel it.
Would you say then it's a responsibility of Jamaicans abroad to come back and help to build Jamaica, or have we become too comfortable in and just looking back from afar and just saying?
Just look, stand up. I would say it's Jamaicans' responsibility, both those that are here and those in the diaspora, to sort of take a patriotic view of your country, like the Americans are doing, those in the UK are doing, and you find
Burkina Faso.
Burkina Faso is undergoing a transformation that is capturing the attention of the entire African continent. Under the bold and strategic leadership of Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the nation is proving that food sovereignty is not a distant dream, but a reality within reach. While many African countries continue to depend on foreign aid, moving from one international summit to another seeking food assistance, Burkina Faso is charting a new course, one of self-reliance, resilience and national dignity. And at the heart of this revolution is a decision that has shocked many. Prisoners are no longer idle behind bars. They are working, farming and feeding the nation.
You find this kind of attitude across the board in all these countries now. So we too, this beautiful island that have so much rich culture, we too need to start looking at it in that manner. Something a bit bigger than ourselves, rather than just, what can we get and how the...
Right. The mindset has to shift now. It's not about what we can get. It's what can we do to our input. What is our input? How can we help to improve, Jamaica?
Yeah, exactly. And especially in a time like this, where we're seeing all of these shifts happening everywhere. So you're going to be abroad struggling and being fearful, and and for many years, you've worked hard and gone through difficulties in these countries, and you put it all in it. So come and give that same energy, that same attitude here in this country, so we can build this place and have a solid foundation for those that's already here, for those of you that's coming, and for those that's gonna come, later on. And trust, and I promise you, we're able to do that here in a manner which, we can't do it anywhere else. Because as I'm saying, we have the community. Jamaicans are loving, kind, people that have a lot of stamina and drive. You understand? They're not people that easily put down.
Some would beg to differ. There are some of our own who have nothing good to say about their own people. And for those people, what I said to them? Turn away there. And just left Jamaica alone. I feel like our words are so powerful. Yeah. And we need to stop. We curse. We can curse something, like curse your land, curse people just by our words. So.
Words are powerful. Yeah. Words are powerful. And you make a good point. And you always have exceptions to, every situation. But what I'm talking about is the masses, and that's where you sort of focus the energy, you know, those in the positive area. You're always gonna have, you know, those naysayers and your negative people, you know. And yeah, you have those people that's negative towards Jamaica, and this is the point I was making. They haven't got that same attitude to these other countries, that they might come upon difficulties the same, or come across violence, or you know, things that is just not good, but they don't have that attitude. So what we're talking, who we're talking to is the masses that really love the country and didn't leave the country because, you know, they want to turn their back on the country, but want to, you know, have a better life, look at a greener pasture, and you know, get caught up in the system, even have intention to just spend a few years and come back, and they get caught up. So those are the people that we're talking to say, now is the time, based on, you know, how things are looking, now is the time to come back, build a solid foundation. When you build a house or you buy a piece of land, it's yours. Nobody's gonna come and take it from you. That is your land. Do you understand? You don't have to worry about additional, you know, charges that you end up gonna lose your house. You know, for example, the UK, you have to worry about council tax. You know, you don't pay your council tax, you can actually lose your house
and go to prison.
and go to prison. You understand? In the UK, in the US, whatever other charges, you know, that might, you know, you have to comes with your home. But here you come and you can actually set yourself up and live a comfortable life, a stress-free life. And stress-free life doesn't mean there's not stress, but it means you're able to manage that stress healthily.
Just on that point about, you know, persons that leave, they see greener pastures overseas, and some now, which was what we were alluding to in the previous video, maybe they haven't made it, quote unquote made it, because making it would be, oh, you've taken out a mortgage to buy a house, you've bought a car. Those things, they come with them. You have to work to pay back that mortgage. You have to work to pay back that car if you did not buy it cash. So they feel, some people are stuck in this trap of needing to repay all these debts and to maintain
all of
this
debt. And that's the real world, and that's the reality of the situation for most people, because most people achieve these things quicker overseas based on the availability of the credit that, you know, you can get, right? It's not necessarily cash that they have. So it's a system that encourages borrowing to achieve what you want. And that's
to give the illusion that you've made it.
That you've arrived and you've made it. And the ideal situation would be to basically purchase things that you only have cash to purchase, with the obvious exception of, for example, a mortgage, you know, that some people would consider that a good debt. You understand? But even that is something that sort of ties you in.
And we're not saying, you know, that you shouldn't get a mortgage or you shouldn't get a car. What we're saying is that it ties you in. These debts, they tie you into the system, and then you then become a slave to trying to repay these things.
Without necessarily having a plan B or an exit strategy, because now you're now chasing that money to be able to maintain these debts.
Right.
So a healthy work-life balance most of the times goes out the window, because that's not something you have the luxury to focus on at the moment, because it's just a case of need to get the shifts in, need to get you know, funds in to just maintain you know, those debts, and then you'll be able to, you know, for those that's fortunate, put something aside for 2 weeks holiday here or there and that sort of thing. So the balance would be to put yourself in a position to have an exit, to be able to exit before everything comes crashing down. That's
before you lose the security of your job,
yes,
your benefits or social security or all of that.
Yeah.
You know, put things in place where you
to be able to exit, because even with the benefits, again, in the UK with the spring budget.
In an effort to balance the books, Chancellor Rachel Reeves are going to push 250,000 more people, 250,000 people, into poverty. These are the government's own figures as a result of her cuts to benefits.
More than 3 million families could be impacted. Sobering figures that come from the government itself. Well, Chancellor Rachel Reeves joins us now. Looking at the front page of the paper this morning, as I'm sure you have done, the Mirror, a Labour supporting paper, says you are balancing the books on the backs of the poor. When you hear that, when you feel that, when you look at your own government's figures that underlie that, do you feel sick inside?
It's affecting people's benefits. Mm-hmm. It's even affecting those that are disabled. Mm-hmm. Right? It's affecting the bills have gone up. Yeah. 1st of April, another increase in utilities. Yeah. And, inflation, keeps rising.
All right, so I suppose one thing we didn't touch on was the tariffs. The tariffs being placed on all these countries.
U.S. President Donald Trump's tariff-induced market mayhem appears to just be getting started. Trading in European markets now underway, and these right here are the numbers. They speak for themselves. They are following Asia's lead with serious losses. Asian markets, they've also been plunging. Just look at these numbers here as well. Major hits across the board. Hong Kong's Hang Seng hit the hardest of all. U.S. stock futures, they are not faring, or at least they're not faring any better. The Dow, NASDAQ, and also the S&P 500 futures, they are all down ahead of the new trading week.
Indicates that it's a global crisis.
It's a matter of understanding how it works. And it would appear as if administration don't fully understand how it works, and that it's something that needs to be done in a strategic way. And when it's done in a strategic way, there can be benefits from it temporarily. Mm-hmm. But the way it's done at the moment, where every single country, America has slapped a tariff on them importing goods to the United States. Some people thinks it's hurting the other country, but in fact it's a additional tax, you can say, that is being placed on the American consumers. The importer is going to pass that on to the distributor, and the distributor is going to pass that on to the customers, and that's that additional increase that they have to be paying now for their goods. So their car is going to be more expensive. Whatever that tariff is on is going to be more expensive for them. In addition to rise in inflation, the market's plummeting. Tons wiping off the stock market. So it's like a perfect storm for your average working class family. And it's scary time.
Of course, definitely. Uncertainty is always scary.
A beautiful end game can't be just keep doing the same thing and just hope for the best. Mm-hmm. Right? I'm saying you have to have a strategy, a plan B that has a nice balance of living and earning at the same time. You can't just continue on that treadmill, because there's so many examples of people following that plan and never get to the point where they get that reprieve that they were working towards. they either get sick. Mental health is a serious thing, and so many people that we speak to, it's mentally they're like burnt out, and they're just hanging on by a thread. And it's not necessarily people that's fragile or weak-minded. It's just the reality of science. You keep going without the break that's needed and the reprieve and the reset that's needed. Something is gonna give at some point. So what we're saying is right now, I think, is the ideal time to be bold and to be brave and say, hey, something needs to change. Because if you don't make that change is going to be made for you. And it's not necessarily going to be the time that you're ready for that change and how you want that change to happen. So what we're saying is just grab a hold, take back control.
Yes.
By stepping out in faith. Yeah?
Exactly, and that's leading me to the point. You said having that strong your foundation needs to be in God.
And God only.
And God only,
Yeah.
because when everything crumbles, are you gonna crumble? Are you gonna give up on life? No, your foundation right now has to be in God.
Yes.
Who will see us through.
Yes.
What role can faith culture, community play in protecting us from a total collapse? Are we ready to return to some old school ways of living?
It's an interesting one, because for those of faith, and even for those that's not of, not spiritual, as I would say, it's somewhere that you need to get to, and it's something that you need to understand. Because personally, in my opinion, it's impossible to function or to even have a plan B or to even see light at the end of the tunnel with all what's happening in the world right now without having God as your rock, as your foundation. Because when all system fails, you lose the job, which happens. I'm sure some people have gone through that process before, your redundancy. When there was a recession, people lose their job, end up losing their homes. And what do? Do you crumble at that point?
Sadly, there are some persons who have crumbled. They've, taken their lives.
Yes, sadly. Yes, and that is what I'm saying. I think, in my humble opinion, if you have God as your bedrock, as the foundation, He's gonna see you through the difficulty, however difficult it gets. But even when it gets difficult and you can't see the next step, you can't see that way through, that faith in God, that community and that rich culture here in Jamaica, where your neighbor will bring a few ground provisions, come and give to you.
Just the other day we got some sugar cane.
There you go. Yeah, your neighbor is gonna stop by and just a word of encouragement out of the blue, not necessarily because they're thinking you need it, but just that spirit and that culture that they have. Saying here in Jamaica, with your faith, with the culture, with the community, you're putting yourself in the best possible position to ride that storm. Because homelessness abroad is not nice, especially in the winter months.
Oh, I was just gonna touch on the winter months, the cold.
It's not nice.
Can't afford to put your heating on during the winter.
We have elderly people in the UK, don't know about the US, but elderly people in the UK we know, die because in a situation where they have to choose now between heating or eating. No human being should live like that. But that's the reality. It's not something that they've chosen.
If tomorrow you couldn't access your bank account, you can't go to the supermarket or access the internet, that's something we don't really think about.
Yeah.
You know, what's your plan?
Where does that lead? A scary thought. And that would leave a lot, of people in disarray because there's no backup, there's no plan B. That is why I'm saying the only security, the only thing that is sure is that if you put your trust in God and you focus on thus saith the Lord, you know that there's guarantee in the promises of God. His words are true, his promises are true, and he says that before one of his words, heaven and earth will pass away. So at this point, it's put a plan in place, trust God, and step out in faith. Yeah? Munchie!
Yes, Munchie.
Yes.
Austin. What do you want? Come here. Come closer. We're discussing the world, how everything is collapsing. What do you want to say to the Jamaicans overseas?
Thanks for all subscribers.
Yeah, so at this point, guys, if you made it this far, we want to ask that you please do not forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Please like, share, comment, and
yes.
And just know that we hi, Austin.
Alex is there. You wanna come to Alex?
Yeah.
Okay, Alex, he wants to come.
I'm coming.
You're always right at the end. You guys are always interrupting.
You wanna play Lego on my
Yes,
phone?
I'm gonna turn it down. I'm not gonna turn it up. I'm gonna turn it down. A little down.
Okay. We can't get a good smooth run through. So, just
Manche, we're gonna record now. Quiet. Thank you.
So the signs are all around us, and the world that we trusted is changing. It's never going back to normal.
Oh no.
And maybe that's not a bad thing. Maybe it's the wake-up call that we all need. And I think especially as Christians and as Jamaicans, no matter where we live, carry something special in our blood. Survival, creativity, faith,
resilience,
the ability to rise in hard times. So this isn't a time to freeze in fear, a time to move in wisdom.
Yeah.
To plant, to build, connect.
Yeah.
To invest, just in things, but in people, in land, in purpose, in God. So don't wait for a collapse to find clarity. Start now. Simplify your life, strengthen your roots, create new streams, teach your children, pray, prepare, because when the world shakes again, it's those people who have done so that will stand. So, guys, thank you for staying with us and watching this video. We thank you so much for your support, your love, your comments. We appreciate every single one of you. We read all of your comments.
Yeah.
So, guys, before you go, do not forget to click the subscribe button, to share, like, and comment. Let us know your views on the topic.
Yeah.
We'd love to hear them.
Definitely.
So until next time, God bless you.
And be safe out there. Peace out.